Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Thomas. Tonight we're back here with How to Beat. Today, it's actually a little different, because this one's called Why You Can't Be Art the Clown in Terrifier 2. So yeah, this is the sequel, which took a few years actually to get to. And yep, Art the Clown is back in action. Though I think this takes a little more supernatural element to it. You'll see. Just watch. So let's see what the deal is with Terrifier 2 and see why we can't beat it. Be sure to like, subscribe for more. Hope you enjoy. Let's go.
If you were being hunted by a demonic killer clown, what would you do? It's been a year since his last performance, and now this maniac mime is back to put on another gruesome show. I'm here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the return of Art the Clown in Terrifier 2.
Here we go.
These teenagers are about to have a Halloween night that they'll never forget. After a brutal rampage that ended with his death, Art the Clown mysteriously comes back to life at the town morgue and immediately begins attacking the coroner. The man crawls to his phone, trying to call the police for help, but he's too hurt to speak. And meanwhile, Art writes his name in blood on the mirror before picking up a tiny hammer and horrifically beating him with it, even stealing one of his eyeballs and messing with his brains. When he's finally done, he gathers a bunch of supplies into a black trash bag and goes off to meet his next unfortunate victim, stopping in at a laundromat to wash his bloody costume. Art sits down reading the newspaper when suddenly he notices this creepy clown girl watching him from a seat nearby. They quickly become best friends, and while they're playing patty cake, this poor guy wakes up from the noise. But it turns out that only Art can see her. With his clothes cleaned, he grabs his things and walks out of the store, leaving the man in his seat with a broken mop handle jammed through the top of his head. Okay,
Yikes.
Art here wastes no time getting down to business, does he? He just came back from the grave and proceeded to kill 2 people all while doing his laundry. That's some serious multitasking right there. The coroner here never saw it coming, so we'll chalk that one up to bad luck. But when it comes to our guy in the laundromat, talk about a lack of survival skills. We didn't get to see their fight, but when Art leaves the shop, the guy is still sitting in the same spot that he was when he first walked in, meaning that he never even made it out of his seat before getting spiked through the brain. Next time that you're doing your laundry in the middle of the night and notice while you were dozed off, a naked, blood-covered clown walked in and started playing patty cake with his invisible friend, it might be time to skedaddle on out of there before it's too late. That's why before he notices I would have casually gotten up and excused myself out of the shop before sprinting down the street like I was about to break the land speed record. Based on how loose his shoes are, it doesn't look like he'll have a very easy time chasing you down. So if you acted quickly enough, then you should be home free. 1 year later.
Yeah, I honestly would have ran to. I'm like, just not a noise, just get to the door, push and run. Like I said, I don't think he had like much chance to like get this there, so it would have taken like a long run to like maybe a city center or at least some place with a lot of people. Check to see, okay, is he here? Okay, phew, gone. Then went back home, while also looking behind my back and in front, making all sides to make sure, yeah, okay, no clown, good. I don't know, like I said, move along.
This girl Sienna is having dinner with her family, and her younger brother Jonathan says that he's planning to go out dressed as the killer clown for Halloween. Sienna here thinks that it's too messed up. And later on while they're doing the dishes, she mentions that she sometimes worries about the kids' obsession with violence and horror, but her mom insists that it's just a phase. That night, Sienna's laying in bed flipping through the channels when she lands on a bizarre commercial for a food truck called the Clown Cafe and dozes off. Suddenly, she wakes up only to realize that she's there in the middle of the music video set and can tell right away that something is horribly wrong. On the next set over, she sees a kid eating a bowl of Art-branded cereal that's full of razor blades and broken glass, and apparently comes with a hidden surprise in every box. That's when the banjo-playing host announces that they have a special guest, and Art himself appears from inside of the truck, smiling and waving at all of his fans. Sienna here is extremely scared, but she has no idea how insane things are about to get. Reaching into his bag, Art pulls out a box wrapped in newspaper and starts shoving it in her face, and inside, she finds someone everyone's beating hard. Suddenly, the clown takes out a Tommy gun and starts blasting everyone who's watching, hitting Sienna in the leg and leaving her one of the only survivors of the attack. Now armed with a blowtorch, he starts lighting whoever's left on fire, while Sienna crawls to the other set and jams her hand into the cereal box as Art slowly walks towards her, pulling out a sword just in time to block the flames. She wakes up in bed and quickly sees that it wasn't all a dream, and her entire house is about to be burnt down. Luckily, her mom is able to put out the flames with a fire extinguisher, but her Halloween costume is completely destroyed, leaving only the sword that her father gave her before he passed away untouched. Okay, Sienna might have made it out alive, but it was really only by dumb luck. Instead of hoping to find a magical sword at the bottom of a cereal box, there's actually a much more effective way that she could have handled the situation. Based on the fact that she was dozing off right before ending up here, and the insanity of everything that's going on, it should have been pretty obvious that this was all happening in a dream, and if she wanted to escape, all that she needed to do was figure out a way to quickly wake herself up and get back to the safety of the real world. Have you ever had a nightmare so intense that you were sure it was real? Well, that's exactly what's happening to Sienna here, but the difference is that this dream could have deadly consequences. In medical terms, the word nightmare describes threatening dreams that occur most often during REM sleep. They can have physical causes, like suffering from a fever, snacking too late before bed, and the side effect of certain medications, or can be triggered by something psychological like stress, depression, anxiety, and PTSD. We all know that nightmares can't really hurt you, but if you find yourself stuck in one like Sienna, here's a trick to wake yourself up. First, you'll need to do a reality check by observing your surroundings for any details that don't make sense. After that, try blinking or reading anything nearby, since this will activate a part of your brain that's normally turned off during REM sleep, hopefully snapping you back to reality. Keep this strategy in mind in case a dream-invading killer clown ever decides to make you his next target. For Sienna here, just taking a quick look around should have made it clear that she was in a dream right away. There's no way that this is taking place in reality, so all that's left to do is to trick her brain into waking up. Receiving a gift from Art the Clown is definitely horrifying, but if she was paying close enough attention, she could have caught on to an extremely important detail. The box that Art gave her came gift-wrapped in a bundle of old newspaper, and that right there could be her ticket out of this nightmare. When stuck in a bad dream, the quickest way to wake yourself up is to try reading something, which is why instead of worrying about what's on that box, I would have immediately started catching up on the daily news. If what I was reading didn't make any sense, then it would trigger my brain to realize that I was in a nightmare, and with any luck, I'd wake up right back in the safety of my own bed. Getting out of there without a fight would always be the smartest choice, but let's say that you wanted to go on the offense instead. Believe it or not, there actually is an opportunity to turn the tables on Art here if you think quickly enough. Once he pulled out that Tommy gun, the whole set immediately went into chaos. And if Sienna had made a move quickly enough, she could have slid down the back of the jungle gym before catching a bullet in the leg and used the actors as meat shields, while she slipped out of sight and found cover on one of the other sets. Then, while Art was searching for her, she could have carefully snuck back over to his bag and grabbed something out of it to fight back with. Once she woke up and realized that the fire somehow made it out of her dream and nearly burned down her house, Sienna should have tried her best to explain to her mom exactly what happened. Sure, her mom's probably going to think she's crazy for now, but as more insane things start going on, eventually she'll have to admit that Sienna might be telling the truth. There's strength in numbers, so it's much better to try and bring her up to speed now than trying to keep it all a secret because you're worried that no one will believe you. The next morning, Sienna notices her brother eating his clown-themed cereal, and it gives her a flashback to her horrible dream from the night before. That day at school, Jonathan sees some kids messing with a dead possum and tells them to cut it out, but the teacher catches them all together and sends them back to class. While getting a drink from the water fountain, he sees the creepy girl skipping down the hallway and goes to check it out, where he finds the two clowns eating the dead creature's intestines. Art throws the animal right at his chest. Horrified, Jonathan sprints away down the hall right into a teacher, pushing past her and running straight out of the building. Okay, This was another moment when Jonathan here really should have explained to somebody what he saw. His own family already thinks that he could be a future serial killer based on his hobbies, so getting caught with a dead animal at school is only going to make matters worse. Of course, nobody is going to believe him when he says that 2 killer clowns threw the thing into his hand, but they're going to blame him for what happened either way, so it couldn't hurt to try. If he told someone quickly enough, like that teacher that he crashed into in the hallway, then someone might have actually seen Art leaving the school property, proving that he was telling the truth all along. Just running away is only going to make everyone believe that he's guilty, and possibly even get him blamed for future attacks that might happen. That's why if it were me, I would have told the first teacher I ran into exactly what I saw, and hoped that there'd be some evidence to prove that I was actually telling the truth. Later that day,
I don't know, I think I would have just told him, like, killer clown, or, I don't know, it's like a creepy clown up front. Just careful. I'm just saying, I don't know if I run, but, again, I wouldn't know Art, but, yeah, if I had a dead possum throw me, I'd be like, oh, hell no. Especially when they were playing with the guts, like, I would have told someone, you know? Sheesh. Well, anyway, moving on.
Sienna and Allie stop by a Halloween store to get her a new pair of wings for her costume. And while Allie is on the phone with her mom, she bumps directly into Art the Clown. Thinking that it's just some guy in a costume, Allie walks out, leaving Sienna alone in the shop, who turns around only to see Art watching her from across the room. He's blocking the only exit, so Sienna quickly shuffles past him and hurries upstairs to the register. As she goes to pay for her things, she notices that she's missing her bag, and that's when Art slams it down on the counter before walking over to try on some sunglasses and continue tormenting her from across the room. Eventually, the cashier goes to get her a bigger bag, and while he's gone, Art creeps up next to Sienna and starts honking a toy horn directly in her face. Taking her things, she gets the hell out of there as soon as she can, with Art following close behind. And instead of going after her, he flips the sign closed and locks up the door. Heading back to the register, Art goes to pay for the horn and starts covering the counter with weapons from his bag. The cashier gets tired of his shenanigans and tells him to just get out of the store before he calls the police. But suddenly, Art smashes him on the side of the head with an empty beer bottle and pulls him over the counter. Grabbing the top half of the broken bottle, he lifts the man up and jams it into his eyeball before taking his cleaver and brutally chopping off his head. Okay, I don't know what they were paying this poor guy, but it definitely wasn't enough to deal with this. I'm sure that he's seen some weird customers come and go, but when Art started loading murder weapons onto the counter, that would have been the moment to take immediate action. Since Art only seems to have hand-to-hand weapons, the best strategy for survival would be to create some distance and get ready to fend him off if he attacked. Instead of standing there and confronting him, I would have quickly snatched one of the weapons and backed away from the counter while grabbing the phone to call the police. Once the police were on the line, even if you didn't have the chance to tell them any information, it would only be a matter of time before they came to check on the call. The fact that he's an employee actually works heavily to his advantage, since he'll know the layout of the store better than everyone else. Using this knowledge, he could maneuver around evading Art and either keep avoiding him until the police got there, circle around and slip out through the front door, or retreat to an employees only area where he could hopefully lock himself down until help arrived. It would have been a terrifying fight for survival, but if he kept calm and made good use of the advantages that he had, he might have turned the tables on Art here. If there's one type of person I wouldn't mess with, it's an overworked cashier, because you know that they're already on the verge of snapping and just waiting for a chance to let out that pent-up rage. Back at the house, Jonathan reveals that he's been secretly holding on to their father's journal and shows Sienna torn out newspaper articles from the massacre last year, telling her that he saw this young girl and the clown together earlier that day at school. On the last page is a sketch of a woman dressed in a costume that looks just like Sienna's, holding up her sword and the severed head of a demon. And Jonathan thinks that this must mean that she's connected too. Sienna still doesn't believe that it's real, but Jonathan here is totally convinced and asks her to please stay home tonight instead of going to the Halloween party, warning her not to be surprised when people start getting killed. Well, that makes things simple. It's not every day you get a whole prophecy explaining exactly what you need to do. Art's the demon, she's the girl, and now she just has to take the sword her dad gave her and cut his head off. Easy peasy. As a matter of fact, I'd also take a minute to search through the rest of their dad's old stuff, because he seems to know a lot about what's going on here, and there might be more information hidden away somewhere that could give us an advantage in the fight. Luring Art in for the kill is going to be the most difficult part, which is why I'd want to use Jonathan here as bait. Since it's Halloween night, the easiest thing to do would be to have him just go around town trick-or-treating all alone, and watch him from a short distance away until the clown decided to show up. Then all that's left to do is jump him with that short sword, chop his head off, and find a wood chipper to throw him in. That way you know for sure that he won't be coming back. If that was too risky, then there is one more plan that they could try. The first time that Art attacked Sienna was in a dream, so it's possible that if she falls back to sleep, she'll run into him again. But this time, she'll be ready. With her brother standing by her to wake her up if things go horribly wrong, Sienna here should try falling asleep and using lucid dreaming to bring the sword with her, where she can fight it out with Art in her mind instead of here in reality. Allie here gets her first group of trick-or...
Yeah, honestly, I think if I learned that and I already saw the clown, I would maybe I should bring that sword. I mean, for one, you wake up, dream fire, burn the wings, and yet the sword was fine. I mean, I'd probably bring that sword as a good luck charm, you know? Just saying, it's usually what you do. To each your own, right? Anyway.
Retreaters for the night, and while she's giving them their candy, she spots a sketchy-looking van parked across the street, never noticing that the pale girl is watching her from inside. As soon as she closes the door, she gets another customer, but this time, it's Art the clown. Allie tells him that he's super creepy and says that she's not giving him any candy since he's too old, but that was her biggest mistake. She closes the door and starts to walk away, but immediately starts pounding on the other side, shoving the garbage bag in her face and refusing to leave until she gives him some candy. When she finally tosses some in, she notices that the bag is full of bloody weapons and quickly locks the door without saying another word, watching him as he walks away down the street. Allie tries to call Sienna, but she gets distracted by a news report about last year's attacks. Just then, she hallucinates the reporter saying her name and starts to have a panic attack. So she goes to her room and takes some medication before laying down in bed. Looking around her room, she gets inspired to conquer her fears and put her costume back together. Meanwhile, Allie's putting on her makeup while she hears glass break from somewhere in her house and decides to go check it out. Downstairs, she sees that someone's broken in through the back door, and suddenly Art strolls into her kitchen and pours himself a glass of water before grabbing some weapons and chasing her back up to her bedroom. She tries to escape out of the window, but Art grabs her and slashes her through the eye, taking the scissors and brutally cutting off her scalp. Throwing her onto the bed, he slashes open her back, tears one of her arms off at the elbow, and rips the other one in half from the fingers down. The clown skips out of the room, leaving Allie behind, somehow still alive. She drags herself across the floor towards her phone, but before she can reach it, Art returns with a bottle of bleach and some salt, pouring the bottle over her and literally rubbing the salt into her wounds, before tearing off a chunk of skin from the side of her face. Allie's mom returns home and is about to go upstairs when she hears the sound of running water and notices that someone's broken in. Horrified, she runs up to the bedroom only to find Art sitting on the bed playing with her daughter's mutilated corpse. Sienna goes back to the Halloween party with her friend Brooke, and the girls order some shots from the bar. She's worried that they haven't heard from Allie, but her friend insists that she puts her phone away and focuses on having fun for the night. Meanwhile, Jonathan tries to show his mom the evidence from his dad's notebook, but she flips out and tears up the pages, slapping him hard across the face, and he takes off running out of the house. Frustrated, she goes to the kitchen and pours herself a glass of wine. And that's when she hears a noise from out in the garage, checking it out only to realize that her car is completely trashed. Outside, Jonathan notices the black van parked across the street and goes to check it out. At first, it seems like no one's inside, but when he looks back, he sees the creepy girl watching him from the passenger seat and decides to run for his life. Back at the party, Brooke reveals that she put a small...
Yeah, honestly, if I saw that black van and it's like, and I know that clown's after me, I would be like, well, shit. Bolted. I mean, hey, do you think your sister's gonna be the one that defeats the clowns? Stick with the sister, no matter what. I'm just saying, Not gonna be good. Jeez. And the parents are out. Anyway.
Small dose of MDMA in Sienna's drink without her knowing, which explains why she's feeling so messed up. She doesn't have much time to be mad though, because she notices that her mom had been calling her the whole time that they were out on the dance floor. And when she calls back, the woman is completely freaking out about her car. Sienna finally manages to calm her down, and they say that they love each other before hanging up. Her mom starts cleaning the car, but when she wipes off the window, she sees Art smiling there in the driver's seat, as he quickly pulls out a tiny double-barreled shotgun, blowing her head into pieces. While they're out on the dance floor, Sienna notices the pale girl watching her from across the party and starts to have a panic attack, thinking that it must be a side effect of the drugs. Her friends decide that they need to take her home. Running back to the house, Jonathan walks in only to find his mother's headless body propped up at the kitchen table. And suddenly Art appears and starts jamming mashed potatoes into the hole where her face used to be. He tries to run upstairs and go for the sword, but Art chases him down and sticks a giant syringe full of strange liquid into his neck. As they're driving home, Sienna gets a call from her brother begging her for help, but it's really the pale girl on the other end imitating his voice. She tells her to meet him at the old carnival grounds, and since they're only a few miles away, Sienna's friends agree to take her there. They pull into the abandoned parking lot, but her brother is nowhere in sight, so Sienna decides to go looking for him alone while the other two wait in the car. She tries calling him again and finally gets through, but the signal is too weak to hear what he's saying, so she texts him instead and says that he's stuck in the haunted house attraction called the Terrifier. Back at the door, Brooke's boyfriend gets out to pee while she tries to call Sienna, but her friend doesn't answer. Suddenly, Art crawls up and stabs the guy right between his legs, slicing off his sausage and holding it up to the window. Brooke desperately tries to start the car, but can't do it fast enough, and Art bursts through the glass, dragging her into the parking lot and coming after her with a huge knife. She kicks him off just in time and runs for her life, leaving her boyfriend for dead, but she's not about to get away so easily. Okay, I think we all saw that one coming. The moment that these two decided to stay back in the car, it was already over for them. And that's why if I were Sienna, I would have insisted that they follow me into the carnival and help me look for my brother instead. Not only would 3 people be able to search more effectively, but this way, I'd have 2 meat shields on deck for when Art inevitably showed up and started slashing. Going it alone is just asking for trouble, especially when you've had a couple of drinks and are somewhere unfamiliar. When it comes to Brooke and her man here, as 2 teenagers making out in their car alone in a dark empty parking lot on Halloween night, as soon as I heard trouble out back, I would have immediately dialed 911, thrown that car into gear, and floored it. When you see a mime holding a kitchen knife and covered in blood through the back window, that is not the time to freeze up and start getting butterfingers like Brooke here. Brooke limps through the carnival, calling out for Sienna, with Art following right behind her carrying his bag of tricks. Eventually she makes it to this creepy looking tunnel, and Sienna can finally hear her screaming. So she runs to try and find her friend before it's too late. Running through the haunted house, Brooke stumbles into a blood-covered bathroom and realizes that it's a dead end. Art slowly walks around the corner with a sinister looking club and a smile on his face. So she grabs a block of wood from the sink and tells him to stay back. But Art distracts her with his weapon, only to toss some acid in her face from behind his back, blinding her and ruining any chance of her being able to fight. As she screams in pain, he bashes her across the back with his club, knocking her to the floor and caving in her chest before reaching into the hole, pulling out her heart and taking a bite. By the time Sienna finally makes it, it's already much too late, and she finds her friend lying on the bathroom floor in a pool of her own blood. Art stands there smiling and starts slowly walking towards her, but that's when they notice Jonathan watching from the doorway, and while the clown's distracted, Sienna grabs a board with a nail sticking out of it and stabs him in the back of the leg, buying her brother an opportunity to escape. Furious, Art reaches down and slams her into the mirror, stomping on her head and leaving her unconscious while he goes after Jonathan instead. Waking up a few moments later, she notices that her phone is completely smashed and grabs Art's club, ready to get back in the fight. Seeing Art coming, Jonathan hides in a crate and waits for him to pass. When he thinks the coast is clear, he starts to run for the exit, but suddenly Art cuts him off and slashes him several times with a surgical knife. Sneaking up from behind, Sienna strikes him in the back, dropping him to his knees and jamming the club into the back of his head. Grabbing her brother, the two of them run for their lives, but Art isn't finished with them just yet. Arming herself with a metal pipe, Sienna and her brother eventually find themselves in a creepy church full of zombie figures. She tells her brother to wait while she checks things out up ahead. But while she's gone, Art rises up from the bench behind him and starts beating him with an improvised cat-o'-nine-tails whip. Sienna rushes in and clobbers Art across the face several times, and he fires back with the whip, injuring her and throwing her over the altar before going back after Jonathan, trying to save her brother's life. She crawls over to him and uses her body to shield him from the blows, the clown mercilessly whipping her over and over. Finally, she manages to catch the weapon, pushing him away and turning it on him until the pointy end breaks off in his face. Throwing it down, she pulls a metal spike from a nearby fence and jams it through the top of his skull. Okay, that was a close call. Sienna here is lucky that Art didn't outright kill her when he had the chance, but she can't rely on luck forever. Sienna missed an important opportunity to call for help back there in the bathroom. She might not have wanted to get the cops involved at first, since she was technically drunk underage, and her brother was trespassing, but now they know for sure that Art is after them and this is a life or death situation. Her phone screen may be cracked, but that doesn't mean that it's completely useless. As long as it still works, holding the lock button and one of the volume buttons for several seconds will contact emergency services without her needing to use the screen at all. Then it's as simple as telling them your location and that a crazy guy is after you, and you'll have armed reinforcements on the way. Even if the microphone or speaker doesn't work and Sienna isn't able to communicate with the dispatcher, they should still be able to locate where the call came from and send officers to the scene. Sienna had a clear shot when she snuck up behind Art in the tunnel and could have ended things right there and then, but for some reason she decided to hit him in the back and do almost no damage, instead of going straight for the head and not stopping until there was nothing left. Now, when they finally managed to put some distance between themselves and Art and had the chance to regroup, there's no reason why Sienna should have been the only one to grab a weapon. I would have wanted to give something to little Dweebus over here too, since it's always a good idea to use numbers to your advantage. He might not...
Yeah, a lot of these moments in this thing, it's just like, ugh, what are you doing? Come on, keep going. Like, you know what I mean, right? Just, so close, and yet they keep fucking it up. Anyway.
Not be much of a fighter, but he could make for a great distraction while Sienna goes in for the critical blows. Speaking of a distraction, if they really wanted to turn the tables on Art, this would have been the perfect time to use Jonathan as bait to lure him into a trap. The whole house looks like it's ready to burn down at a moment's notice, so if they could find something in the workshop where they got the metal pipe that would help them get the flames started, like a blowtorch or some flammable liquids, then they might be able to trick Art into chasing Jonathan into one of the small rooms that are all over the place, and then have Sienna ambush him, trap him inside, and roast the creep while they escape, as we've already seen several times. The most important thing with this guy is to confirm the kill. Just because he's got a metal spike through the brain doesn't mean that he won't be getting right back up as soon as you take your eyes off him. The only way to make sure that he isn't going to come back and take your eyes off of you is to really finish the job. Sienna goes to check on her brother, but before she can get a single word out, Art bursts up from behind her and throws her to the ground. Jonathan jumps on his back, trying to hold him off, and Art easily tosses him away. But in the scuffle, he manages to get a hold of the sawed-off shotgun strapped to his ankle, and fires a blast directly into Art's chest. When she finally wakes up, Sienna realizes with horror that her brother and the clown are gone. She runs down the hallway and finds Art standing over him, rushing at the clown and punching him in the chest. But he takes the hits and grabs her by the neck, throwing her down a trapdoor into some kind of creepy basement below the building, and spitting on her with all of the disrespect. Looking around, she sees a mysterious red door in the floor and hears voices calling out to her from the other side. She gets up to find her way out, but Art is standing right behind her and stabs her in the stomach with her father's sword before letting her fall into the void. Sienna wakes up in a Houdini-style water chamber and starts struggling desperately to get out with no luck. All around her are the dead people from her nightmare, and while they celebrate and sing their little jingle, she drowns, unable to set herself free in time. Okay, you have got to be kidding me. After getting so close to freedom, that's how you got out? I hate to say it, but Sienna, it looks like you f***ed up. So far, you've been skating on by nothing but dumb luck at every turn, but it looks like now your luck finally ran out. We should have known that you were doomed, even from all the way back during your first encounter with the clown in that nightmare you had. You remember, the one where you sat there paralyzed with fear until you got shot in the leg, and only managed to survive by pulling a magical sword out of a cereal box? How about the costume store, where you were so terrified of a damn bicycle horn that you nearly passed out right on the spot? Art probably only let you go because he figured that you were so pathetic that he could kill you anytime, any place. And the poor cashier who was just trying to get through the day ended up having to pay the price. Oof. Jonathan here tried his best to warn you about what was coming, but even after everything that had already happened, you decided that the best thing to do would be to go to a Halloween party and get hammered with your friends. I hope it was fun, because while you were trying to drown your fears in alcohol, your mom got turned into ground beef, and now your little brother got kidnapped, which leads us to the predicament that we're in now. Instead of calling the police because you didn't want to get in trouble, or even bringing your friends to back you up, you chose to wander around an abandoned carnival on your own, in the middle of the night, with no plan or way to defend yourself. And what do you know? The creepy clown who's been stalking you all day was there the whole time. Even your friends, who had nothing to do with any of this, got killed. And I bet their last thoughts were about how much they regretted ever letting you tag along in the first place. To top it all off, by my count, you and your brother had no less than 5 chances in the span of the last 15 minutes to take this freak out for good. But somehow, you blew it every single time. Now you're dead and trapped in some kind of clown dimension, where your brother has it even worse, left to suffer whatever twisted torture Art has planned for him. When you manage to mess up so badly that not even the plot armor can protect you anymore, Sienna, you have seriously fucked up. Jonathan wakes up only to see that Art has started eating him alive. He screams for his sister's help, and suddenly her father's sword starts to glow with a magical red aura, healing her wounds and shocking her back to life. Finally, she reaches down and tears herself free, pulling herself back up to the land of the living. Sneaking up behind Art, she stabs him deep in the back with the sword, slicing into the side of his neck and slitting his throat. Realizing that he's finished, Art offers her a clean shot and she hacks his head right off of his shoulders. The clown is finally dead. The two kids hug it out, thinking that they're home free. That's when they see the pale girl watching them from the other side of the room, and she does not look happy. But the girl only grabs Art's head and takes it with her as she walks away down one of the dark tunnels. Okay, wait a minute. She's not seriously about to let that thing take Art's head and walk away, is she? After literally coming back from the dead to slay him, how is she just gonna stand there while his little friend takes what's left of him and goes off to probably resurrect him somewhere? Because you know that's exactly what's gonna happen, and the first two people he's gonna come after when he's back in his killing shape are, you guessed it, Sienna and Jonathan. She's got a magical sword that heals all wounds, so what the hell is she waiting for? If it were me, I would have wasted no time in hacking that little creep to pieces and burning the bodies for good measure. That night, at the county psychiatric hospital, Vicky, the horribly disfigured sole survivor of last year's massacre, starts writing disturbing and vulgar messages on the wall in her own blood, including the names Vicky and Art in a big heart at the center. When the nurse goes to do her rounds, she hears commotion coming from the women's room, and peeking in, she sees her there holding Art's head in her lap, as if she's just given birth to it, and eating the skin off of the side of his face. The head smiles and laughs as the woman's eyes turn a sickly yellow, just like the pale girl's. It looks like Art will be back for another slaughter after all. But what would you do?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, if I saw that girl, I'd be like, oh, hell no. Both of them. Like, come on. Yeah, those two were idiots. Let's be real. And if that happened anywhere else, yeah, you know we would stop it like that. Come on. Make sure the thing's dead, and boom, go home. No need to do it. Then again, I want to kill her, so probably want to lost some friends along the way. Yeesh. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that one. Sorry for the scares, so until next time, adios.